Good morning and Happy New Year. Sean here, Mountains Garage. I didn't see the ball drop, if there was one. I sat in my chair about 10:30 after a busy day of activities. I blinked my eyes and it was 2:30 a.m. when I woke up, looked out the window, enjoyed the waning full moon and a beautiful quiet night with no wind. I'm not writing a story here, a romantic novel. I'm just saying hello. Today we're working on both Novas. Catch you up on what's going on. In an unbelievable twist of fate, a few videos ago, I told you I had researched and found another set of stainless eBay headers that sold in a few places, normally for around $430, that claimed they would clear my steering box, my angle plug heads, and sit higher in the car so I can have low ground clearance. It sounded too good to be true. And while the departure was going to be from Shanghai, China, it promised a 2-week delivery. That was about a week and a half ago. December 30th, they were still in Shanghai. And miraculously, they made it from Shanghai to Louisville, Kentucky, which must be the UPS hub, I'm guessing, for international flights. I don't know. And to my house by the 31st. And they're out for delivery in the morning. I was excited and I waited till dark and the truck rumbled in and I unboxed my pretty well beat up box, still warm from China. And I slid them right into the car and they seemed to fit. It highlighted a couple of problems I'm going to show you, but I currently have all 8 spark plugs in there, although I need to run short ones, I think, or dimple the pipe. They're close because they're angle plug heads. And I don't want to burn plug wires, so I'll fix that now. I'm kind of researching shorty, 14 millimeter, 3/4 reach, taper seat, not taper seat, washer seat. Still working on that. They look expensive, and I hope they're actually short enough to the hassle, but I'll work that out. But I got the clutch linkage in there loosely. That's going to work with a little tweaking. And the header does everything it says it's going to do. Let's go take a look at it. And to finish up on the header story, they list for $430 or $435 anywhere I found them. This particular ad said make offer. I offered $320, free shipping, and I'm holding them in my hand. Can't complain about that. So as promised, they're pretty much even with the subframe. That's excellent. If I drag the frame on the ground, the header's going to touch too, but before, the header's hung below the frame. It's tight from this angle, but it's tight from any angle. But my Z-bar is installed. And from the top, it's on the lift right now, I can't show you, but it clears my steering box with ease. And pretty much the plugs. So that's a bonus. The passenger side, they ran the number 2 pipe on the inside. And there was plenty of room to go outside, and I wish they had, but I didn't build the header. But that is what creates my spark plug boot issue over here, but it's not insurmountable. But they do, once again, not go below the frame. And in some areas, it's like they were made for my car, the way they wrap around stuff. But again, it's a pretty popular combination. This shouldn't be that difficult. And then I got back to the collector, and the collector, I can put my hand between it now, but the collector was right on the floor. So I said, well, I guess I'm going to have to modify that. And then I remember from the other day, my yoke was actually hitting the floor too. I've lowered it down now. I have the engine where I feel it's comfortable, where it should be. My motor mount bolts are still loose. Everything is relaxed in the chassis, and it looks like the engine is where it belongs. I've measured this polyurethane mount, and all the stock ones I have, and they're all the same height. So the mount distance isn't my problem, but you can see how much I'd have to cut out of the cross member to put the engine where I think it belongs, and it's telling me where it belongs. So what's my problem? You can almost see it in this dusty picture, but I don't believe these mounts were ever changed. The front ones were. The back ones appear to be original, and this should not be this close. And that's causing my interference issue. The car itself is too close to the frame or vice versa. Again, this is all body dust. Don't worry about that. But so I believe somewhere in my collection I have new mounts. I know I have new aluminum subframe mounts. I don't know if I want to go that way, but I'm pretty sure I have rubber ones in stock as well. That should cure my issue as far as the transmission mount and the collectors hitting the floor. I was also impressed that both 3-bolt flanges are actually welded and fixed. So I have a nice flat flange, and I'll actually use this probably with those copper gaskets I showed you last time. And the pipes themselves are longer than one I had, so I can cut into the old pipe. It'll be way back here. Make one weld, not a lot of adapters. So that's a win. Well, these are some seriously long tube headers, so I won't be giving up any power if that was a concern, I guess. So now you're up to date on the 71 Nova. I had hesitated pulling the transmission back out to mess with the clutch fork and to cut the shifter opening bigger. Unsure when I finally got the long headers if I could fit them in without, initially when I started I had to have the motor jacked up on the driver's side to even get the header in. And I thought I was going to have to do it on this one. I tried it 3 or 4 times, and then I hit the right combination, and it was in. I didn't scratch anything. So all week, like I mentioned in the tool video, I rebuilt a manual valve body Turbo 400 to trade for a pair of Borg-Warner S366 turbos for the 71 Nova. So let's transition over to that car for a minute. You haven't really met it. It's on the left, but I'll talk about some of it. And I've decided, here it is a new year, I might as well work on, I've already promised to work on the Model A, I haven't touched it. That needs to happen. The 71's coming along, but sometimes you probably get sick of watching it every video. I get sick of working on it, so I'm gonna mix it up a little bit, try to keep it interesting for all parties involved. So let's go look at that. The 72 Nova. So you've seen it in the background of a lot of videos, and all its primed, nearly ready for paint glory. It had just a set of stock car wheels and tires when I got it to roll it around. You've seen them in other videos because they're excellent tires and wheels to roll stuff around. I had bought these American Racing, the 10-inch on the back. That's a 315 radial. That fact and a few other ones, I'm going to tell you how it kind of is not a good thing, but from stance-wise, I mean, this looks like it has good stance and the wheels are hanging down. You ought to see it on the ground. And I haven't seen it weight in the front end or a front end on it. But it's going to be a cool car. It has only a 6-point cage. And it has rear subframe and it's been back halved. But the cage, I'm going to either add to it or start over. The work that's done on the cage, the welding is okay. It's MIG welded, but it's not ugly. And I'm fussy. I have all the pipes just to add on to what's there. That's probably what's going to happen. My goal is 850 certification. That's plenty fast for a street car if I can even achieve it. So, another video I'm going to talk about building a drag car, choosing your ET and building the car to do that. And sometimes you get down to it and you're hoping you're actually going to run the number. Sometimes you exceed it, but that's a different story. This car came out of a body shop in Rhode Island. The body shop owner owned it, I believe. And every part about this car, I wish I knew more about it. He didn't have all the details. It was a quick transaction. I actually met him at New England Dragway in the parking lot where I've actually bought other cars. It's an excellent meeting spot. And we met. I bought it. We slid it on my trailer. I dragged it home. Happy with my purchase. So everything on this has been touched and welded, and I like a lot of it. It's been back aft. It has rear frame rails. That in itself stops me from being in like a stock rear suspension class if I wanted to run that. The fact that it's back aft, the same story. You gotta have stock rear suspension in some classes. If that was a goal, I'm just keeping a mental checklist of things I could and couldn't do to it once it's finished. But my goal is to street drive. I've mentioned before, this is a nice fabricated 9-inch Ford, but you can't run it in this situation. You would just bend it. There's no rear bracing. So that needs to be fixed. Typically, you would add all this stuff before you weld the ends on, but I have the technology to redo it or fix it if I have to. 4-link brackets, you cannot run them like this. They need to have some 1-inch strap welded down there and support them in every way possible. I think to fix this situation, a brace is going to interfere with the shocks and stuff. I believe I'm going to run, I've already been mocking it up, this piece of tubing Got to cut right through my shock mount, so I'll catch this, and I'll weld the plate in the rear and connect it over here. Maybe hoop around, but that hoop will be handy to strap the car down too, and then I believe I'll support it that way, and I shouldn't distort the housing too much. And if down the road it ever bends, I will just redo the entire thing. But that's my makeshift plan at this point, to use what's there. So it is a 4-link, which is good in my opinion. I may build a wishbone instead of the track locator. It has a 389. I believe it's a NASCAR housing, still has the hole for the pump. With a Detroit locker, which is all things that I enjoy, so that just needs to be pulled out. I think 389 is not my gear of choice, but I'll put it in the rotation. I have 9-inch Fords set up all the way from 315 to 410 that I've collected and assembled for myself. It had a cobbled together rear disc brake setup that I discarded, and I don't know if I'm going to run disc or drum back here. I have both options that I've collected in my junk. I'd like to retain the parking brake because I actually like to make things legal. If you're going to call it a street car, everything should work. I'm not trying to start a debate. That's the way I do it. If I put a sticker on it, I want it to be legal because I'm the one putting the sticker on it. The brake lines are awful. I don't know if they consider them finished, but they actually ran it through the subframe, which is okay, I guess, but probably not my first choice. More stuff that needs to be redone. I've showed you some of this before. It has a Unisteer power rack and steering arms. That's like an $1,100 setup. If it was manual, it would definitely be staying. I'm a little bit nervous with a GM style power steering pump. It might be really twitchy at high speed, but I do have a restrictor that goes in line. I could probably tune it if I choose to keep it. I also have the ability to put a manual steering box in it, which is probably going to be my choice, and all the stock steering linkage back in it. A nice, slow responding manual box is probably the ticket for something you're going to run 8s in. I don't believe power steering's a necessity. That is still to be determined. Every nut and bolt in it is wrong. I assume they just mocked it up. Let's go with that. But even when I mock stuff up, I like to use the right bolts. Again, all the brake tubing. I think you saw it in the other video when I was showing him. This is just crisscrossed and awful. But all good stuff. It has a Willwood master cylinder. Disc, I believe, along with the junction box. I'm mumbling here for some reason. All in all, with a few, I need to fix that. There's one little area over here in the car. It's the only bad spot in the car where they didn't finish it. And it's been brought to my attention. I say car like I'm from New York, but I'm not. I'm north of New York, I guess. So I need to fix this and this. Not that it's rusted, they just cut it out, didn't finish. I don't really know what the story is there, but that's the only spot on the whole car. I take that back. They filled in the hole for the wiper motor. And right back to me also having a parking brake. I gotta have wipers. I don't mind they filled in the heater box. But all the tin work, none of it's bead rolled, and I wished it was. I may redo it. Time will tell. And even though they didn't narrow the back half very much, you can't run much bigger tire than a 315. I might get a little more in there. Typically you'd move the frame rails in closer. That's an odd choice, but I'm not sure what the whole plan was. I can see at one point it probably had leaf springs under it, so maybe they didn't want to go that narrow. But somebody put a ton of work into welding all the subframe connectors to the floor. That part is, there's parts of this car that I think are brilliant, and other parts you never know. This is like where they tied the subframe into the stock frame. It's all good work. Nice welding. It'll work. So last night I did a little measuring, and this is the 204R crossmember, and yes, 4R is correct. It's R4 on a 700 and 4R on a 200. Don't ask me, ask GMY. I don't know. So, turbo 400, short shaft, and a 204R share the same distance from here to the end, including the mount. So I bolted the unknown manufactured crossmember in. It comes with 2 sets of holes combined with the multiple holes in the frame. I can move this back and forth I get about an inch here, and there's about an inch of slide on here that I can move the 400 back and forth, because the Turbo 400 is 1 3/8 longer than all the other GM transmissions of that time. The 3-speed manual, 4-speed manual, Power Glide, and TH350. So, if you, well, let's look where my tail housing currently sits here compared to the body brace. I've got maybe an inch right there. Back over here on the 71 Nova, I'm pretty much even with the body brace. I'm further back with a shorter transmission. The reason for that is on an LS motor, the rear cylinder head is even with the bellhousing mating flange. Unlike a small block or a big block Chevy, there's a larger gap than that, which moves the cylinder head forward in the car. So in the stock engine location with an LS swap, you're into the firewall. So I measured this mock-up motor, and it's pretty much 10 1/4 from the back bellhousing flange to the back motor mount bolt. About 10 1/4. So I measured that same gap from the bellhousing to the mount bolts, and I got this set about 10 1/4. And with the straight edge, I clear the firewall, probably have room for like a transmission dipstick, and again, I can come ahead a little more with the slide available right there. So I won't know the exact location until I actually lower this 5.3 into place. So that's today's fun little project. I'm going to take the 5.3, I'm going to stick it in there, I'm going to pretty much place the Turbo 400 where it's going to go. I can actually go ahead and measure for the drive shaft because the rear end differential I have stuck in there is the correct length. So I'll have that, at least that dimension written down. And I'll build one. I believe I have enough tubing to build a shaft for that car. I need to get another piece of shaft. I have enough end yokes to build the drive shaft for this one as well. Up there in my junk, I have a set of up and forward headers and T4 elbows that I'm going to use to attempt to dummy up the twin turbo setup under the hood. Well, there is no hood, but you get the idea. Before I do that, let's talk about the drive shaft and pinion offset. When I build a narrowed rear end for a car, I typically choose a centered housing, and the pinion would be offset to the passenger side about 1 inch. Let's call it 1 inch on a 9-inch Ford, or rounding up. So your pinion would be offset, and your drive shaft would run in the plane offset that way, plus your other plane, your difference in your pinion angle, which you want straight under load, but typically runs in 2 planes. And that's completely acceptable and preferred. If I was building a dragster where everything was solid mounted, of course I would go with a centered pinion, because you're going to run a straight imaginary line from the crankshaft all the way down to the pinion. But in a car, it's very, I feel, advantageous to have the pinion offset to the passenger side. For reason number one, let me spin around. I had already installed big block frame stands, which moves the engine 1 inch over to the passenger side and up in the car a little bit. I know in an LS swap it gives me more oil pan clearance on the subframe, and my plan all along was to run the big block mounts. But I did a little quick measurements, and this is a centered pinion with an offset housing. So, it's already done. I'm going to leave it. A factory Turbo 400 crossmember, which are really reasonably priced in most of the restoration houses. These are offset to match the engine stands. This is a 204-arm mount, which would have been probably on a small block. They built it on small block offset, which is centered the engine in the car. No offset, I should say. So this is a centered crossmember. I have a centered pinion. So logically, I stole my small block frame stands out of my test run stand. The paint is currently drying, and I'll swap them out and put the motor back in the middle of the car. So today and tomorrow, I'm going to try to mock up the twin turbo setup in the 72 Nova. Last night, New Year's Eve, I traded the fresh Turbo 400 for the pair of S366s. They actually are sitting here on the bench. That's a good thing. I haven't even had them out of the box yet. 2 days ago, on a whim, I have a cast T4 LS turbo log manifold I bought for the twin turbo Monte Carlo when it was going to be a single turbo. I have most of the stuff for the crossover pipe. On a lock, I decided I'm going to buy a $145 GT45 and make it a whole kit. I'm not sure I'll ever use it, but it's worth a lot more as a package than it is individual pieces or just the manifold that I had. I'm going to end up losing money trying to get rid of it. So, before COVID, that turbo cast manifold was about $287. During COVID, when they weren't available, they shot up all the way to $700. They hovered around $5, and now they're back to $287. So I paid $287. I'd be lucky to get my $287 back. So I'm gonna make it a whole kit. So I went on eBay with the intent to buy one. They're all in that price range, $145 to $150. Just make sure they're stock in the U.S. But there was one lone ad. I didn't even notice where it was from or anything, but it was a guaranteed shipping within a week. And it was $88, $33 shipping. So I bought it. Brand new in the box. A few minutes later, I get a message. The guy lives the next town over. He says, if you'll meet me, I'll give you the turbo and $20 back. Can't beat it. So I just went and got it. I'm going to mock up the twin turbo setup in the 72 Nova, and then I'm going to bolt another LS into the test run stand, and I have that cast manifold that I'm going to make the crossover for, make that whole package. I have enough 410 stainless 3-inch bends, exhaust bends. I'm going to do one of the half stock manifold turbo log manifolds just for fun. I can MIG weld that. That'll actually be a pretty easy project. Rip the manifold open on the bandsaw. Same with the pipe. That actually sounds like fun on a day that you don't feel like doing anything else. I've been collecting everything to make a stainless T6 log manifold for the S475 that I have, Borg Warner. I've had that for 5 years now. Been out of the box once or twice. I had it all mocked up on a 63 Nova. Again, I think the next video will cover some of that stuff, at least show you the twin turbo setup. Today, I got other things to do, so I'm just going to wrap all this mess and my ramblings for the last 20 minutes into a package, and hope you enjoy it. Again, Happy New Year. I'll see you next time.